Hey, heathens. As promised, we are picking back up on the Genesis series. We left off with Abraham and Lot setting off to find their new worlds and all this promised land that would come. And in the very last chapter, 17, Abraham gets the message from God that his penis just was too ugly and needed to be trimmed up. So he decided, he didn't decide. He was told to then trim up everyone else's too, and circumcision began. In this chapter, chapter 18, and we're going to put 18 and 19 together, but in chapter 18 is the promise of Isaac to Abraham. And several interesting things happen here as we lead into the upcoming chapters that we'll cover later. So let's get to it. So follow along in the verses if you like. I'm just going to paraphrase here as we go through each verse. So God appears to Abraham, and it's a hot day. Abraham is in his tent door. He looks up and sees, God apparently reveals himself, so he knows that it's God, and there's three men with God. So Abraham looks up and sees the three men, and he runs up, meets them, and bows himself toward the ground. And he says, "My Lord, if now I have found favor in thy sight, pass not away, I pray thee, from thy servant. Let a little water, I pray you, be fetched, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree. And I will fetch a morsel of bread, and comfort ye your hearts. After that ye shall pass on, for therefore are ye come to your servant." And they said, "So do as thou hast said." So what has happened so far? God shows up with his three boys, and they're hanging with Abraham, having a little food. Abraham tells Sarah, remember that's his wife, he calls for Sarah to come to the tent and tells her to make ready 3 measures of fine meal, knead it, and make cakes upon the hearth. Abraham ran into the herd, fetched a calf, and gave it to a young man who dressed it. So they fixed up some beef. And he took butter and milk and the calf, and so he fed them underneath a tree. So they're having a little picnic, eating up, having a jolly old time. So the men say to Abraham, "Where is Sarah thy wife?" And he said, "Behold, in the tent." And he said, "I will certainly return unto thee according to the time of life. And lo, Sarah thy wife shall have a son." And Sarah heard it in the tent door, which was behind him. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Now Abraham and Sarah were old and well stricken in age, and it ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women. In other words, Sarah's already been through menopause, so she can't get pregnant. Now, old people having babies was a big deal back in these times. Remember, Noah was pretty old when he had his first kid. But this is different. Sarah's already been through menopause, so it's not going to happen. And so Sarah laughed, saying, "After I am waxed old, shall I have pleasure, my Lord being old also?" And the Lord said unto Abraham, "Wherefore did Sarah laugh?" I guess God can't talk straight to the woman. That would just be inappropriate. No, because he's gonna straighten her out here in a second. But he's going to ask Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh?" I'm thinking, well, why don't you ask her? And aren't you omniscient? Don't you already know why she laughed? Then Sarah denies it, saying that she didn't laugh. She was afraid. And God says, "No, you laughed." He's omniscient, remember? So he knows everything. So the men rose up, looked toward Sodom, and Abraham went with them to bring them on the way. So they're all getting ready to leave. He's seeing them off. And God asked if he shall he hide from Abraham the thing which I do, meaning he's going to destroy Sodom. Because Abraham's a cool guy, he's going to lead a great and mighty nation. So he kind of felt like it was important for Abraham to know what's going on. And he said that the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very grievous, I will go down now and see whether they have done altogether according to the cry of it, which is, come unto me, and if not, I will know. Not sure why he has to go down there to find that out, but he does. It says so right there in the story. And the men turned their faces and went towards Sodom. But Abraham wasn't real happy with this. And that takes us to Genesis 18. Abraham draws near and wants to know if God will destroy the righteous with the wicked. Good question there, Abraham. Not sure why you're questioning an omnipotent, omniscient being. We could never understand the Lord's ways and all. Surely he knows what he's doing. He's decided he's going to destroy it, and that's going to be pretty much the end of it. But he decides to throw out this little argument to God that maybe that's not the greatest idea he's ever come up with. Obviously, he wasn't aware of the flood. And he wants to know if 50 righteous be within the city, would he still destroy them instead of sparing the 50 righteous people? I love this verse here. That be far from thee to do after this manner, to slay the righteous with the wicked, and that the righteous should be as the wicked that be far from thee. Shall not the judge of all the earth do right? And the Lord said, if I find in Sodom 50 righteous within the city, then I will spare all the place for their sakes. Several issues here. God had no problem slaying the righteous with the wicked during Noah's flood. Has no problem with any other time when he's going to commit mass genocide later on. But of course that hasn't happened yet. But here Abraham said, no, you wouldn't do that. Yeah, he killed the whole world, remember? But then God says, tell you what, if there are 50 righteous people, I'll spare them. Remember, omniscient God, who for some reason still has to go down to see this stuff, but omniscient God says, okay, if there's 50, I won't destroy the city. So he already knows there isn't 50 by his standards, and how could there be? So what's the point of making this deal with Abraham? Abraham, not going to go there. You aren't either. Abraham decides he wants to haggle. And in a scene which reminds me so much of the Life of Brian scene where he's trying to buy the beard, he goes from 50, he says, but what if there was 45? We're just 5 short. Would you still do it? God says, no, okay, fine. If there's 45, I won't do it then either. But what about 30? Would you do it still for 30? No, I wouldn't do 30. So yeah, okay, fine. If I find 30, I'll leave them alone. But what about 20? Is 20 still, if you found 20, would you still kill the 20? All right, fine. If there's 20, I won't do it. And then again, there's a small issue I have with the story here. Abraham says, oh, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak yet but this once. Peradventure 10 shall be found there. And he said, I will not destroy it for 10's sake. So, went from 50, 40, 30, 20, all the way down to 10, and then Abraham stopped. Good. 10. Abraham, why not go for 1? Your brother, Lot's there. Lot is there. You know Lot's there. Surely you think Lot's decent. Maybe even Lot and his wife and his daughters. Of course, we know how that story turns out. But no reading ahead. But you stop at 10? Come on, Abraham. But no, Abraham stops at 10, and the Lord went his way as soon as he had left communing with Abraham, and Abraham returned unto his place. So, the omniscient, omnipotent God is going to find out if there are 10. He started off saying he was going to do it anyway. There's, okay, fine. He changes his mind, proving God is not eternal, except that, okay, he's omniscient. He already knows he's not going to find them. So what is the point of this ridiculous exercise of futility? Whichever way you take that, whichever way you want to interpret what that means, either way, God still knows he's not going to find them, or God isn't all-knowing. Can't have it both ways. So what do you think will happen? What do you think will happen? Will he find the 10 people? We'll find out in the next edition. Till then, don't take my word for it. Think for yourselves.